Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for giving me this article. I saw it, I think, on Twitter initially, and to see that you pulled it up in the list of articles to cover this week is kind of cool. So hopefully, I have some insight about my opinions. But, anyways, this article comes from IGN, and Anthony Wood is the writer for this one. So the title of the article is "The ability to see the world at a higher frame rate could give some gamers an edge, though further research is needed to prove it." Some lucky humans are capable of seeing the world at a higher frame rate than others, according to results of a new study. The authors believe that the trait could even give those people an edge when it comes to competitive gaming and sports, though further research is needed to prove it. The human eye is a miraculous organ that allows us to perceive the universe by converting light into electrical signals using cells known as photoreceptors, which are then transmitted through an optical nerve to a region of the brain known as the visual cortex, where an image is formed. The frequency at which this process occurs during each waking second is known as temporal resolutions. Were you expecting a biology and anatomy lesson here?
I was not a little caught off, a little caught off guard, you know.
Yeah, some of this I actually know because little little bit of a story is I know people that overclock their controllers and they try to get the fastest response time, best like half a millisecond or whatever monitor, the highest or the best keyboard and mouse controllers, all this other types of crap, when really they should be focusing on your own physical reaction time and coordination skill, because that's going to matter more. When you're talking about like less than 200 milliseconds, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like you should probably focus more on doing like if you're an FPS shooter, it's like try to do Formula 1 um like training exercises that they do for reaction time.
Okay. Okay.
Instead of just like let's overclock our controller like for what? To get what like 100 milliseconds faster. Do you know how insignificant 100 milliseconds is? That's nothing. Dude, you can't measure that in like a physical term.
Coach Mike,
I mean, you
dude. Coach Mike, you know,
just saying,
teach him everything.
literal. Yeah. But hopefully this article goes into that's kind of why I'm excited about the article right there. A little bit of context. Let's continue on. According to the results of a new study published by Journal Plus One or PLOS One,
Plus.
PLOS One, some people see the world around us at a higher temporal resolution when compared to other humans. What's more, the researchers believe that this ability to form more images per second could give these individuals an edge in competitive gaming and other high speed activities. I think that is very true. Also think that everybody kind of knows this if they've ever done any type of substance that might make your vision go blurry. Alcohol is a very popular one, and your reaction time goes slower, so it's only natural to think like, hey, maybe we're not all equal at the baseline.
Yeah,
Just
that's a good
saying.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. So this quote directly from Trinity College Dublin associate professor, and it is what's the name? Neurobiology Kevin Mitchell, who is the co-author of the paper. So what he says is, because we only have access to our own subjective experience, we might naively expect that everyone else perceives the world in the same way we do. Example like colorblindness show that isn't always true, but there are many less well-known ways that perception can vary too. This study characterizes one such difference in the frame rate of visual systems. Some people really do seem to see the world faster than others. Yeah, I think it's estimated like the human eye can do 1,000 frames per second. Like
Whoa.
if it was a what do you call it? Like a computer screen
Yeah.
or like in terms of gaming, I guess hardware, technology. So during the study, the researchers asked a group of 88 volunteers to observe an LED light through a pair of goggles, which they manipulated to flash at different speeds. This test, known as critical flicker fusion threshold, allowed the scientists to keep track of the number of flashes per minute or frequency at which a person can no longer be able to discern the flickering and instead saw a continuous source of light. It was discovered that the flicker threshold varied significantly amongst different volunteers, allowing some to see a frequency of up to 60 flashes per second, while others were unable to perceive breaks in a light flashing at just 35 times per second. Furthermore, it was found that each individual's critical flicker threshold changed relatively little over multiple sessions and conducted at the same time on subsequent days. Really struggled with that one. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of people, like you and I, wear glasses. I mean, some people never have to wear glasses. I'm colorblind. You're not colorblind, from my knowledge.
Yeah, no, I'm
So
not.
it's like, yeah, we're all kind of different in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone's different. I'm just a little bit jealous of people that don't need glasses because I feel like it's just rare that you don't need glasses at all. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, then again, my dad actually had he had cataracts and he recently got them removed, and he got like the synthetic lens put in both of his
Oh, yeah.
eyes, and so that's like it's like completely corrected his vision, and like he just needs like readers now sometimes. But it's like there's a way to just like we have ways now to just correct our vision, which I think is just insane. And like I feel like soon we're just gonna have like digital like lenses where we can like have like Apple Vision Pro and like these
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like,
these lenses that go crazy.
I also think that back in the day, like the tube TVs, um, I, I think they had to be worse for your eyes. They had to be, right? I don't know if that's true. That's just my perception.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I just remember playing video games on the tube TVs and my eyes were hurting by the end of the day. But
Yeah.
like now I can sit down in front of my IPS panels and stuff and I'll be fine. And I'm just grinding all day, every day. And they also
Yeah.
have like lens corrective glasses that will help you out with like, was it blue light?
Yeah. Yeah, like a blue
Like there's
light
so many
filter
different
and
things. Yeah, to like protect your eyes. I think all of that really impacts you. It's kind of like just being out in the sun all the time will just negatively impact your skin. It's just
yeah. Yeah.
wear and tear is real on the body.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting too, like to your point about like, looking at an IPS display, like it's very rare I feel eye strain. Like I can't
Yeah.
maybe I'm just like fortunate in that regards. Maybe just genetically I'm like less predisposed to it because I know there's some people who like it's a problem for them is sitting in front of a computer all day and it's like puts a lot of strain on their eyes. But I don't know. I guess I don't know if I just like trained myself from a young age to just look at computer screens all the time.
Oh
Like
yeah.
which is like I don't know if it's something I would like brag about. Be like, hey, like I just didn't go outside all the time, and it's like I just like impervious to looking at a
Yeah.
screen all day. It's probably not something to brag about, but I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of validity to that of just being around screens all the time and just used to it.
Yeah, there's also just other aspects of it too. You might have circumstantial like health things that happen to you. I think the pressure in your eye will change based on different factors of your day or like what you might eat possibly. I'm not an optometrist, but that's
Yeah,
my interpretation of what it could be. Or stress is a major factor. Like back in the day, what was it, 2 years ago? I was heavy with stress to the point that I got macular edema and I was losing vision in my eyes
dude, that's
be-
that's scary
because
stuff.
it like that's just what happened. So having different what does it say? Furthermore, it was found that each individual's critical flicker threshold changed relatively little over multiple sessions conducted at the same time on subsequent days. So it's like, okay, so they're trying to find consistency. I wonder why that is.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's any like they obviously need to do more tests. I mean, it's a
yeah,
science experiment at the end of the day.
yeah. I
So
mean, the consistency thing, I the way I interpret it, it's very much like they want to determine if it's actually a thing where one person has a higher frame rate detection
yeah,
than someone else. So they want to probably try and keep a lot of the control variables the same and then just kind of
of course.
give the same scenarios on subsequent days, give some time in between. So it's not like if someone's like getting stressed that day or they're like they have a lot of strain or something like that. I think they want to kind of keep that consistency because it would prove that, hey, there's some validity behind the fact that people can see frame rates differently. So it's like, I think it's the way I interpret it is trying to keep that as similar as possible kind of across different days so that, there's
Yeah.
consistency there.
I wonder if it's a psychological thing too. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I mean, it
just
could be.
like thinking and seeing things at a high frame rate. Like when we play video games, we go over like 300 frames per second. We might be able to see or notice that more because you kind of like adapted to it.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
like the 60 to 144 or 144 to 240. It's like,
oh, I can notice that for sure. I can notice 120 to 144
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I do like for me, I eventually I want to get like 240, or I think by the time I get a new monitor, it's 360 is probably going to be the standard.
Yeah,
So like I'll probably
for
end up
sure.
getting 360. Or I don't know, 500. We talked about a 500 hertz monitor like last, it was a year or two ago,
Oh yeah.
something like
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Or
they
yeah,
exist. That's
yeah,
the thing. It's just like, is it worth it right yet? Like right now, like can the
yeah.
GPUs do that? Uh,
Most games probably not,
as-
right? Yeah,
no,
yeah.
most games probably not, but there are definitely a few where you're like, okay, drop all the settings to low, and all of a sudden you're over 1,000.
Now
It's like, you don't
CS2,
need that.
you need 1,000. You can get 1,000 frames in CS2 probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue on. So the other quote here is from the co-author and PhD candidate Clinton Harlem, and at the same college, Trinity. I'm struggling with words right now. Sorry, Trinity College Dublin. So the quote goes: "We don't yet know how this variation in visual temporal resolution might affect our day-to-day lives, but we believe that individual differences in perceptions, individual differences in perception speed might become apparent in high speed situations where one might need to locate or track fast moving objects, such as in ball sports, or in situations where visual scenes change rapidly, such as competitive gaming." Nice. All right, let's continue on. So the variation in images per second detected by the human volunteers is somewhat similar to those seen in the eyes of closely related members in the animal kingdom, wherein one of the species has developed separately to hunt faster moving prey compared to others. And same, okay, another quote from Harlem. Uh, this suggests this suggests that some people may have an advantage over others before they have even picked up the racket and hit a tennis ball, or grabbed a controller and jumped into a fantasy world online. In the wake of a study, a number of gamers and some experts on the subject matter took to social media to share their thoughts on the research into temporal resolution and how it could affect a person's ability to detect or deal with different frame rates. So I'm curious, do you think we should go into other people's takes? Because it just seems like we're throwing Twitter quotes out there.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it seems like from what I'm reading, for the most part. I think the overall sentiment I'm seeing though in all of these is like, um, it's like fascinating to think that this could be a thing because like I'm sure there's theories people had in the past of like I just feel like I just like or maybe they feel like they see things more clearly than other people and there could be why some people are just maybe more naturally kind of gifted at one thing versus another like gaming or something like that. There could be kind
Yeah.
of so to think that there could be extra things there, and there could be extra barriers there. I think certainly is would make sense. I think in some cases, and that kind of seems to be what the general sentiment is definitely fascinating stuff that we're kind of hearing that there could be something there, and I think more research for this. I mean, it seems like a lot of people are interested in it. I'm certainly interested to hear more about it, but yeah, if this is actually a thing, I think it would be it'd be interesting to know. And like, I don't know, it could be something maybe people could like, they could find ways to test themselves at home to see what their like threshold is. I guess be kind of a way to kind of be something interesting to check. But man, I don't know. I think it's really fascinating. I think it's plausible. I'd be curious to see more research.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I I don't know if it's necessarily a physical thing where like whether or not your eyes can actually see a higher frame rate or not, or if it's more of a mental thing where you're trying to concentrate it and like filter through the information that you take in. Because it's like when you're looking at something, you're taking in a bunch of information, no different than being at like a really, really crowded mall, even though those don't really exist anymore, or like a concert or festival. It's like there's a lot of things going on, but you can kind of focus on what's important, you know?
Yeah,
It's like if you and I are in a very crowded room with a lot of people and they're all talking, having their own conversations, but you and I want to have a separate conversation about like something important, then we'll focus in on that and we can kind of mute out everything behind us. It's
yeah,
like those things behind us don't matter. Like you hear it, but it turns into a white noise.
yeah, for
You
sure.
know, I think that could be the same thing with visual stimuli as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's an interesting theory. I mean it's like and to like further prove that, like your kind of theory on the sound, I mean, you hear about like, like NFL football players all the time and they say that when they're on the field, they're in the game, they know there's a
Oh, that's
crowd
all they care
there, but
about.
it's like they're not focused
They
on it,
don't.
right? It's just like
No.
they're able to tune it out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
They talk about it so often they literally don't even notice.
yeah, it's just like you're just playing the game. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think there's certainly yeah, I would agree with that. I think to a certain extent that could translate visually too. Um,
Yep.
and
There's
just
a
keeping an eye on different things on your screen and stuff like that, and being able to focus in. Yeah, I think it's definitely a thing.
for sure. There's one thing I want to add right before we go, and it has to do with this random comment that's on this IGN article. And he mentions, I assume it's a he, but he basically says that you can find examples in films where they'll splice in a single frame or an image, and then the audience won't see it until they watch it the second time.
Oh yeah, it's like
And
missed sometimes by people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very like he mentions Fight Club. Have you seen Fight Club? I
Yeah,
mean, the
like whenever Tyler or
Tyler
whatever is
Durden.
like, yeah, you see, yeah, I remember seeing that. I noticed that the first time I watched it. I was like, what? Like, what was that? And then like I looked it up later, and I was like, oh, that was intentional. It's like it's really
Yeah,
weird.
like a lot of people don't see that though,
Yeah,
and that's not the only movie that has done that. But they'll just splice it in. There's a lot of
yeah,
movies like horror. They'll splice in like a single frame or like a half a frame where like
yeah,
something will peek up, and people don't understand why they get a little bit more like anxious. It's not like afraid; it's an anxiety that starts coming up
yeah,
because like their consciousness saw it, but they don't register what it was, and they
yeah,
just know something's wrong because it's like a fear tactic that's like what's it called, like genetic almost, or like it's your
yeah. Like
genes, it's in your
innate. I
DNA.
don't
Yeah,
know.
innate. Yeah, it's like, well, instinctual is
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
the best
okay,
way
yeah,
to say it. It's
yeah,
just like a fear that people would have, and it creates anxiety in in the horror. And then when the actual monster comes out, or whatever's supposed to be the frightening thing in the movie, it's like extra
yeah. It's
intense.
that much impactful. Yeah, it's way more
Yeah,
impactful. Yeah,
they do the same thing with music, but that's the beauty of cinema. And yeah, I think enough rambling on. Really, it's just, I don't know. I've once heard that you can see up to 1,000 frames per second. That has a lot to do, I think, with like concentration. But it's good to see that people are studying specifically the competitive gaming route of how like the frame rate, if you even want to call
yeah.
that what
Yeah,
it is.
if you have that natural kind of gift of seeing it, if this is true, I mean, it seems like
Yeah,
it's starting to point in that direction. But yeah, definitely more research required.
yeah.
It's too
Very interesting
anecdotal.
article though.
It's too
Very
anecdotal.
interesting
Yeah.
article.